Hello, beautiful Libra soul. The energy of wealth, clarity, and divine timing is awakening in your field right now. And this video is here to show you why. From July 18th to 20th, 2025, you are entering a sacred energetic window, a period when the universe is whispering directly to you. Not to everyone. To you. The 6 numbers we're about to explore together are not just lucky combinations. They are encoded frequencies. Keys. They're cosmic coordinates that will activate a new timeline of abundance, emotional clarity, and spiritual alignment if you're ready to receive them. And something tells me you are. Because if you're watching this, you didn't just stumble here by accident. You were led. I want you to ask yourself this: what if the numbers showing up in your dreams, your receipts, your clocks, your signs aren't coincidences, but confirmation? What if your soul has been preparing for this moment to remember its path, to awaken its power, to realign with its true direction? This is not just another horoscope. This is your invitation to return to what you've always known but may have forgotten: that you are not broken, that you were never behind, and that everything you've been through was building the strength for what is about to come. Because Libra, you are the keeper of harmony, the bringer of beauty. But more than anything, you are the seeker of truth. And these 6 numbers are aligned with your next chapter of expansion. Over the next few minutes, I'll walk you through each of these divine numbers, how they connect with your spiritual journey, how they align with your health, and how they signal key shifts in your financial energy. Along the way, we'll also tap into the tarot archetypes that mirror your current transformation, the numerology codes encoded in your life path, and the color frequencies that can subtly magnetize more ease, luck, and alignment into your day-to-day life. You'll want to stay with me until the very end, because there's one number in particular that's been appearing in thousands of Libra charts, and when it shows up, things begin to shift quickly. But I'll reveal that in just a bit. Let me also take a quiet moment to say this from my heart: thank you for being here. Your presence is sacred. Every comment you leave, every like you offer, every time you subscribe or share these messages, you become a vital part of this soul-connected community here on Zodiac Whisper Tarot. You are the reason we're able to keep doing this work, and I honor your energy deeply. So here's what I'd love for you to do. If one of these numbers feels familiar, or if a specific number has been showing up for you lately, comment below and write: I am aligned with the energy of number __. This is more than just engagement, this is activation. When you speak it, the universe listens. And before we dive in, I'll leave you with a truth I hold sacred. Nothing formed against you will prosper, as long as you remain aligned with your purpose. You are not here to chase what's meant for you. You are here to receive it. Now take a breath, open your spirit, and let's begin this journey into the 6 sacred numbers that may just change everything for you. There's something quietly powerful about the number 5. It doesn't come crashing into your life like a storm. Instead, it arrives softly, like the hush right before a long overdue realization, or the exhale you didn't know you were holding. And in this season, Libra, that's exactly the frequency surrounding you, not one of chaos, but of calibration. It's not about dramatic shifts, but about subtle realignments. About returning to your natural rhythm after drifting just a few steps too far from it. The number 5 often marks a moment in life where we're invited to stop and listen, not to the noise outside, but to the gentle nudges within. It doesn't ask you to run. It simply invites you to look inward, reassess, and gently fine-tune. You may notice certain habits, people, or choices that once felt supportive now feel out of tune. And that's not failure. That's growth. You're not breaking, you're expanding, maturing, evolving into someone who no longer settles for temporary alignment, but instead seeks harmony that lasts. In numerology, 5 is associated with transformation, yes, but the kind that begins with awareness, not force. It speaks of freedom, but not the impulsive kind. Rather, the deep, liberating sense of freedom that comes from knowing who you are and what truly supports your peace. Right now, Libra, the universe is offering you a space to reorganize your internal compass, to ask, what do I truly value, and what choices honor those values each day? This is also a moment to care for your nervous system and digestive health, the two systems that most often respond to internal tension. Are you overprocessing mentally, emotionally, physically? Your body may be asking for a slower pace. Simplify your meals, infuse warm ginger into your tea, let go of caffeine if it's been agitating your focus. Sometimes, nourishment isn't about adding more, but about creating stillness so your system can catch up to your soul. Financially, this is a sacred pause. Not a standstill, but a reevaluation. You may feel pulled to act, to jump into something quickly. But the energy of 5 reminds you, not all movement is progress. Consider your motivations. Are your financial decisions rooted in alignment or anxiety? This isn't the moment to chase shiny opportunities. It's the moment to create depth with what's already in your hands. The seeds you nourish now slowly and with intention will bloom in ways speed could never replicate. The Hierophant appears here as a wise reminder. Often misunderstood as rigid or old-fashioned, this card is really about returning not to tradition, but to truth. Your truth. It asks you to remember what once grounded you. The rituals, the routines, the quiet wisdom passed down from your inner knowing. Think less about mastering something new, and more about honoring what already lives within you. There's a gentle discipline in that. A sacred kind of maturity. Not everyone will understand your new rhythm, and that's okay. When you begin to operate from internal alignment rather than external validation, your world changes, not because the world shifted, but because you no longer need it to approve your every step. Maybe this is what we were told long ago in quieter words, that peace isn't earned by doing more, but by choosing to stay close to what's real. And what's real for you right now is the call to slow down, to come back, to reorient around 5 values that feel unshakably true to your soul. Write them down. Let them be your morning compass. Let them bring you back to yourself each time life gets too loud. Stay with this process. Let it unfold gently. After all, Libra, your balance doesn't come from standing still. It comes from moving with grace, clarity, and deep self-respect. That is your magic. That is the energy number 5 is offering you now. Not everything in life arrives with clarity at first. Some things, especially the most meaningful ones, come as a whisper, a feeling, a quiet nudge from within. And when the number 11 begins to rise in your energetic field, it rarely announces itself with volume. Instead, it reveals itself through patterns, synchronicities, and questions that come back to you again and again. Libra, if you've been feeling like you're standing on the edge of something new, sensing a deeper purpose tugging at your heart, know this: you are not imagining it. You are being called inward not to escape the world, but to rise into your true role within it. The energy of 11 is sacred in numerology. Known as a master number, it represents heightened awareness, inner wisdom, and conscious alignment. But let's be clear, this isn't a call to be perfect. It's a call to be present. And more than that, it's a call to be honest. With yourself. With your values. With the path you know you've outgrown, and the one you're just beginning to glimpse. When 11 appears, it doesn't hand you a detailed plan. It simply lights the next step. And that's all you need, the courage to take it. This number is often misunderstood as mysterious or abstract, but in truth, its power lies in its simplicity. When you begin to live in a way that honors your truth, everything else starts to shift. The relationships that once drained you begin to fade. The ideas that once felt distant now feel urgent. And the silence you used to fear becomes sacred space where clarity is born. Sometimes we think our breakthrough will arrive with applause or approval. But more often, it comes quietly, in the stillness between distractions. That's where your soul speaks the loudest. Your health, too, is part of this realignment. The master number 11 is intimately connected to the mind-body connection, specifically the pineal and pituitary glands, which regulate sleep, intuition, and your sense of rhythm with the world around you. If you've been struggling to rest deeply, to focus clearly, or to feel grounded in your body, it's not because you're broken. It's because your inner guidance system is waking up. You're learning to hear differently. And that kind of sensitivity requires rest, not resistance. Honor that. Create boundaries around your sleep. Dim the lights. Turn off the screens. Give yourself the quiet your intuition needs to rise. Financially, this number signals alignment more than acceleration. Yes, a long-held idea may finally be ready to manifest. Yes, an opportunity may be surfacing that feels familiar and oddly timely. But 11 isn't about chasing. It's about responding. Responding to the vision that's been planted within you, the one that keeps returning no matter how many times you doubt it. This is the green light you've been waiting for, not from someone else, but from within. Take one small step. Trust that it's enough to begin. There's a deeper teaching here too, one that echoes timeless wisdom. When we stop trying to earn our worth and start honoring it, everything changes. You don't have to prove anything to deserve alignment. You simply have to allow it. That's what the morning ritual of writing, "I allow myself," does. It creates space in your nervous system and your energy field to receive what you've been asking for. The words you write are not just thoughts. They are blueprints. Each one is a door swinging open in your favor. And just as the High Priestess card represents, your power now lies not in loud declarations but in quiet conviction. You know more than you give yourself credit for. Your timing is divine. Your readiness is real. And your next chapter will not be rushed. It will unfold slowly, steadily, and beautifully the moment you allow yourself to follow what you already feel to be true. So if your heart is stirring and something inside you is whispering, "This is it," trust that voice. It may not come with fireworks, but it will never lead you wrong. Sometimes growth doesn't look like action. Sometimes it looks like stillness, the quiet kind of movement that happens when your inner world begins to sync with your outer choices. That's the invitation number 14 brings into your life, Libra. After the stirrings of awakening from number 11, you're now being asked to integrate, to blend, to find that subtle rhythm where your heart doesn't fight your mind, and your instincts don't contradict your logic. The message isn't to choose between feeling and focus, it's to create harmony between the two. Because this isn't a moment for extremes. It's a season for balance. In numerology, 14 is a combination of the root number 5, transformation, and 1 plus 4 is equal to 5, again echoing a deeper call for recalibration, but on a higher octave. When this number arises, it often appears during times when you've outgrown the chaos of rushing but haven't yet built full comfort in the calm. It marks that sacred in-between. And if you're honest with yourself, you may sense that you've been here before, living in the tension of almost and not yet. That's where the power lies. Not in arriving, but in learning how to move gently through transition without forcing resolution. Your emotional health is especially sensitive now. The systems most impacted, your lymphatic and circulatory systems, respond to how you process your experiences. When emotional energy stays stuck, it creates tension in the body. But movement doesn't always require intensity. Sometimes, healing begins with softness, warm baths, herbal teas, aromatherapy, sunlight streaming through a window. These aren't indulgences, they're intelligent ways to remind your body that it is safe to release what no longer serves you. And when the body feels safe, the mind begins to open again. Financially, this energy is about choosing sustainability over speed. You may feel a pull to compare your pace to others or to chase an opportunity simply because it's available. But number 14 asks you to pause and reflect. Does this align with who I'm becoming, or is it simply familiar? You don't need to compete in someone else's race. Your success will always feel more stable and more satisfying when it's built from what is honest within you. When you create from integrity, not urgency, money begins to flow with less resistance and more rhythm. This is also the essence of the tarot card Temperance, which carries the spirit of graceful blending. She reminds us that you don't need to be all one thing. You can be intuitive and logical, dreamy and grounded, gentle and powerful. You were never meant to choose one part of yourself over another. Your beauty, Libra, is your ability to make opposites dance. If you've ever been told that you need to be more decisive, more certain, more one-directional, it's okay to let that expectation go. Your strength is in your discernment, not your speed. The patience you cultivate now will ripple outward into every area of your life, especially your relationships. There is nothing passive about being intentional. It is an act of quiet mastery. Maybe this is the lesson many of us were meant to remember, that peace doesn't come from fixing everything outside of us, it comes from finally listening to the wisdom within. And often, that wisdom has been waiting patiently for you to sit with the very discomfort you've been trying to outrun. So if the world around you is asking for answers, but your soul is asking for pause, trust the pause. This is not a delay. This is sacred timing. And one of the most powerful things you can do during this phase is to write out the 14 most important lessons you've learned from your past relationships, not to dwell, but to reclaim your insight. Let those lessons become your map. Let them remind you how far you've come, how deeply you've loved, and how much you've grown, not in spite of the pain, but because of how you chose to rise through it. That's what true alignment feels like. That's the quiet gift number 14 is offering you now. There comes a time when the energy around you begins to feel different, not louder, not more urgent, but deeper. That shift you've been sensing, Libra, is what the number 20 gently introduces into your life. Unlike the awakening of 11 or the inner blending of 14, the vibration of 20 brings a kind of emotional and energetic closure. Not in the sense of an ending to mourn, but a transition to honor. It's the moment when you realize something is complete, not because it failed, but because it fulfilled its purpose in your life. That in itself is a form of grace. Number 20 carries the subtle but powerful frequency of readiness. It doesn't rush in to push you forward, but instead clears the space around you so you can finally recognize that you're no longer who you once were. And when you stand in that recognition, even briefly, you begin to feel it in your body. The need to exhale. The impulse to rest. The desire to rebuild, but from a new place this time, wholeness. From a vibrational standpoint, 20 connects deeply to your sense of energetic renewal. You may feel more called than usual to slow down, to create room for silence, or to tend to your body in ways that feel restorative rather than productive. Whether it's scheduling a full day of no obligations or booking a massage that reconnects you with touch and presence, your body is asking to be heard, not fixed, just honored. This is your reminder that healing doesn't always mean doing more. Sometimes it means surrendering to the stillness that allows your nervous system to recalibrate. Financially, the number 20 often signals unexpected movement. A surprising offer, a long-awaited response, or even a quiet breakthrough that shifts your entire approach to abundance may appear. What's important to remember here is that you don't need to justify receiving something good. You don't need to trace it back to a specific action or try to explain why it arrived. The lesson embedded in this number is that sometimes the reward comes after the release, when you've done the work, let go of control, and allowed things to settle naturally. That's when alignment meets you. This is the same energy embodied in the Judgment card in Tarot, a call not to be judged, but to rise. To answer a deeper knowing that says, it's time. And not because someone said so, or because the timing is perfect on paper, but because your spirit is done carrying what it no longer needs. You don't owe it to anyone to stay in a version of yourself that's expired. The only permission you need to evolve is your own. Even spiritually, the lessons of renewal often echo the gentlest of reminders, that what's for you will come without force, and that the doors that close behind you are not punishments, they are protections. You are not here to keep reopening what's meant to be sealed. Instead, you are invited to collect what's valuable from those chapters and move forward with lightness. There is a time for pressing forward and a time for standing still. This moment belongs to the latter, but not in stagnation. In clarity. If you're unsure how to step into this new energy, start by acknowledging how far you've already come. Write down 20 things you've overcome, not because you need to relive the pain, but because you deserve to see the strength that's been quietly building beneath the surface. When you document your resilience, you reclaim your power. You remind yourself that you are not defined by what ended, but by how you carried yourself through it. Let this be the season where you no longer apologize for outgrowing the old. Let it be the space where you rise, not to impress, but to align. Because what's ahead for you requires the version of you that's rested, realigned, and ready. And Libra, you are ready. It's often after a period of quiet transformation, the kind no one else sees, that the most significant energy begins to rise. Libra, the numbers 27 and 33 come into your field not as beginnings, but as acknowledgements. They arrive when something in you has already shifted, even if you haven't found the words for it yet. These aren't numbers that push you into action, they invite you into integration, into wisdom, into embodiment. Because truthfully, you've already done more work than you've given yourself credit for. Now is the time to own that quietly, not to broadcast it, but to live it. The number 27 speaks to a maturity that's earned not through time, but through presence. It reminds you that emotional growth doesn't happen when we bypass pain or distract ourselves from it. It happens when we learn to sit with what's uncomfortable and stay. Not to suffer, but to understand. Not to dwell, but to witness. And it's in that witnessing that the real alchemy occurs. When you let yourself fully feel without judging the emotion, you create the space for it to move. This is how the energy of 27 works. It's subtle, it's honest, and it's deeply rooted in emotional clarity. If you felt like something old is resurfacing, a relationship memory, a creative idea, or even an unfinished project, pay attention. 27 often reactivates the things we once laid down because we weren't ready. But now, you're not who you were back then. Now you have the tools. Now you have the insight. And now, perhaps more importantly, you have the patience to finish what you once left behind and to do it without self-abandonment. This kind of growth requires rest, not rush. It asks you to take time away from screens, from distractions, from the world that demands constant reaction. Even 27 minutes of stillness each evening can be a portal. A place to listen, not to others but to your own inner knowing. There is a reason why the card of the Hermit is tied to this number. He doesn't isolate to disappear, he withdraws to return more full of light. And so do you. Then there's 33, the rare master number known as the teacher through presence. It doesn't teach through instruction, but through alignment. This is where you become the mirror that others recognize themselves in. Not because you preach or prove anything, but because there's a calm in you that speaks louder than words. The kind of calm that only comes from lived experience. If you found yourself in situations lately where others seek your advice, your energy, or your perspective without you trying to offer it, this is that energy. 33 appears when it's time to lead by simply being. It doesn't mean putting on a mask of perfection. It means staying rooted in your own process, knowing that the way you show up in your food choices, your words, your boundaries, your values is already an act of quiet teaching. Financially, this number also brings a different kind of abundance, one built on trust, not tactics. When your presence carries integrity, resources gravitate toward you. People want to work with you not because of what you say, but because of how they feel in your presence. 33 is the embodiment of earned magnetism. It's not loud. It doesn't hustle. It attracts. This is where subtle spiritual intelligence meets real-world application. You're being called to show up with grace. To nourish your body, maybe with lighter foods, fresh greens, clean water. Not as a rule, but as a ritual. And then, to give yourself time. 33 minutes each day, just for you. No audience. No agenda. Just your energy, breathing, slowing, deepening. Some might say that your presence is enough, and that's true. But what's more accurate now is that your presence is transformational. Not only for others, but for you. It's time to stop underestimating the power of being consistent with who you truly are. You don't need to raise your voice to be heard. You don't need to explain your piece to be understood. Sometimes the most healing thing you can do for yourself and for the world is to walk with gentleness, speak with honesty, and honor your pace, even when no one else understands it yet. That's what the path of 27 and 33 reveals. You are not just learning, you are becoming. And the way you carry yourself in this season could quietly change everything. There's a quiet moment somewhere between reflection and realization when something inside you finally clicks. Libra, if you've made it this far, that moment might be happening for you right now. Because the truth is, you were never meant to chase balance outside of yourself. You were always meant to remember that it's been within you all along. The 6 sacred numbers we explored, 5, 11, 14, 20, 27, and 33, are not just symbols. They are soul codes, frequencies that unlock clarity, guidance, and a deeper sense of self-trust when you're willing to listen. You see, the journey isn't about becoming someone new. It's about becoming more of who you already are, peeling back the layers of doubt, of past conditioning, of fear disguised as logic until all that's left is the truth. Your light is enough. Your rhythm is valid. Your timing is divine. These numbers were not given to you as instructions to follow blindly. They're invitations to realign your habits, renew your focus, and return to the simple truth that when you live in harmony with your own energy, everything begins to respond differently. And maybe that's the greatest secret of all, that the shift you've been waiting for doesn't arrive from the outside. It begins the moment you stop questioning your worth and start living as if you are already aligned. Because you are. Right now, in this moment. Not when you achieve more, or fix every part of yourself, or please everyone around you. But when you say yes to your own inner knowing. When you create space in your day, even if just for 5 minutes, to slow down, to reflect, to remember what actually matters to you. So let me ask you gently, as someone walking this path with you, which number spoke the loudest to your spirit today? Was it the quiet call of 5 asking you to recalibrate? The soul-expanding pull of 11 reminding you to live your truth? Or perhaps it was the grounded wisdom of 27 or the guiding presence of 33? Whatever it was, write it down in the comments. Not just for me, but as a declaration to yourself, to the universe, to your future self who will look back and be grateful that you listened. And as you reflect on this message, consider one more question. What if everything you've gone through, every pause, every pivot, every closed door has simply been preparing you to rise now, in this very season? What if the alignment you've been longing for is not something to earn, but something to allow? If this video gave you even one moment of clarity, of stillness, or of hope, I want to thank you for being here. Your energy makes this space sacred. Every comment you leave, every like, every share, every subscription is more than support, it's a ripple of light. It reminds me, and reminds this community, that none of us are walking alone. Together, we are remembering who we are. Please consider subscribing to Zodiac Whisper Tarot, where we continue this journey with compassion, wisdom, and so much heart. Share this message with someone who may be standing on the edge of their own transformation. And don't forget to write the number that resonated most with you. That's how we anchor it in. Remember, Libra, you're not behind. You're not late. You're exactly on time. And the universe is not just working around you, it's working through you. So breathe that in. And begin again, but this time with trust.